Hey, the new crew, JT here with Jeff Vejr, one of the great winemakers in the Willamette Valley, in America, in the world. He is the guiding force behind Golden Cluster, Alice Obscura, um, probably like a bunch of other wineries. Um, we're going to have a conversation today about what he's doing in Oregon and how maybe you think that Oregon is only Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, and maybe it isn't. So, Jeff, here's what I want to ask you.
Sure.
People tend to think Willamette Valley, Oregon is Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, a Burgundy, Monk. Is that the case? Why isn't that the case? I would love to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we started to get that impression because we won 10th place in a wine competition in the late 70s. But when a lot of the original, what I call Oregon wine renaissance individuals, David Lett, Charles Corey,
Sure.
Richard Sommer down in Roseburg,
Great.
they had a kind of a wider view of what could possibly be. No one ever came up there thinking Pinot Noir is the answer. They came
Right.
up there thinking this is a cooler climate area, and so let's just try a whole bunch of different things.
Right.
And then when we did get that acknowledgement of the South Block 1975 Pinot from Ivory Vineyards, kind of set in motion and kind of stopped a lot of experimentation with other varietals. Because to get that kind of credit globally in Oregon for a wine no one even knew we were growing is pretty high praise.
Sure.
So it made sense where people started to kind of chase that tail. What it unfortunately did is it kind of stopped us from experimenting the other things that might be really, really conditioned to Oregon and all its multiple microclimates.
Okay, so I want to jump on that. Like the idea that it stopped experimenting, and it seems like you have been, at least from my perspective, one of the people that has started this world of experimenting. I'm looking at now at all of these like young cats that are kind of circling around you,
Yeah.
that are maybe being like maybe like Willamette is good for Germanic varietals. Maybe we should think about it for Italian varietals, and like the idea of Oregon or Willamette as a place of experimentation seems to have taken off, and you seem to be at the ground zero of it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think I'm just a continuation.
Okay.
I'm just taking the baton that is passed to me by a lot of people that either didn't feel they had the opportunity to experiment anymore because they were too busy trying to make a successful business by selling Pinot Noir. And this is why I don't use the term pioneer for people like Charles Corey or for David Lett for that matter, because there was a wine culture in Oregon, in the Willamette Valley, and in the total state before the 70s and 60s. So
Sure.
It existed back in the 1870s. There were a lot of German and Swiss immigrant families that were planting lots of Chasselas, was the main grape actually in the Willamette Valley back then.
Sure.
We just lost 50 years of time. Between 1915 and 1965, there was really no grapevines being grown in the Willamette Valley. So all those
Right.
generations, all that history, all that knowledge, we missed. And so since 1965, we've really just been trying to recapture what that is. We're just trying to go back in time and restart something that existed in 1870.
Right, and you have the same thing with Napa Valley, where you have like
That's right.
this huge gap between the Prohibition and like basically Bob Mondavi, and like in like the late '60s and early '70s. But like, can you talk a little bit about Charles Corey specifically? Because like one of your major things is you've sort of reclaimed the Charles Corey vineyard, right? And so like we have here your first row Charles Corey Chardonnay. We have your Corey Semillon, right? Like, and this is one of the, at least in my mind, one of the sort of Grand Crus, or one of the most important viticultural heritage spots of Willamette, and you are holding it down. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of history in general, and when I was exposed to his story, I was quite shocked because I didn't know he had planted all these grapes back in.
Well, what's the story?
So he studied meteorology, got his master's in horticulture from Davis, but prior to that, he went to meteorology school at UCLA.
Sure.
And so he had a kind of a weather framework. He was very successful in horticulture at UC Davis, graduated top of his class, and then was asked to come to France and work at INRA, which is their governmental body that manages all the grapevines. And he worked in Colmar, Alsace. And there he learned all about modern winemaking at the time, cooler climate grapes. He just loved that history and that culture. And he wanted to bring that to Oregon. He really felt that Oregon was a great place to maybe set out and kind of explore this kind of wine style. He didn't come to Oregon to discover or rediscover Burgundy. He really did that he came to Oregon to discover a Germanic style of wine.
Sure.
And he wanted to do that and was dead set on doing that because he also learned the piece of property that he bought used to be a vineyard in the 1800s owned by German and Swiss immigrants. And so he was more convinced that this was hallowed ground, that this was a possibility.
Sure.
So he came armed with a lot of insight, a lot of foresight, and a lot of just natural gut instinct that this would work.
Right.
Some of the things turned out to be true and have been successful. What he couldn't have envisioned, because he tried to really go really fast because he was so excited, he couldn't have envisioned how slow an organic way of creating a new market and a new wine region was going to be.
Sure.
And so while he planted grapes in his vineyard in 1966, he left the industry in 1978. So many people since 1978 haven't really spoken about his story much. And so when I was given the opportunity to work with these really rare grapes on this really old site, I felt it was my responsibility to retell this story and kind of bring it back to surface, because without him, most of what we know as Oregon today probably wouldn't exist.
So, when we talk about, because I consider Quarry Vineyard to be one of sort of the Grand Crus of America, right? Mm-hmm. And when we talk about this is an interplanted vineyard, right?
Correct.
How many different grape varietals do you think are planted in Quarry?
Existing right now that have survived, there's probably at least 12 to 13 grapes, right. Some of which are extremely rare.
But from all over the place,
from
right?
all over the place.
Like Chardonnay, Alianico.
Yeah, he has, it's the only known planting that is of over 50 years old of Savagnin Rose, otherwise known as Clever de Helgestein.
Sure.
It is one of the last remaining vineyards in the entire United States that has Flora, one of the original American wine grapes.
Right.
Corey was half French, half Hungarian. He was very proud of his Hungarian roots. And he has a very rare clone of Muscat called Pearl of Java. Mm-hmm. It comes from the village of Bratislava, which is in south central Hungary. He has one of the first public cuttings of Pinot Gouge or Gouge Blanc. We have 18 of those plants, so not a lot, but it's in the first row. It's planted there in the first row. And he was king of also interplanting things. So there are, 22, 23 Merlot plants interplanted with certain Pinot Noir clones to help with color. There are a few wild Sylvaner vines planted within the Semillon. So he was really strategic and very smart about how he interplanted things, because this is a very old world technique, right, of how you mitigate vintage.
Right.
You don't plant to a monoculture, you interplant so that you have your instant farmer's insurance. So no
Sure.
matter what weather Mother Nature gives you, you're going to make something that's pretty well in balance.
Sure. And the idea that he stopped in 1978, mm-hmm. right? And that's exactly kind of when we're talking about at least from my perspective, the kind of Willamette as Burgundy,
that's right,
kind of started, seems very interesting, right? And it seems like, at least from my perspective, you're picking up where he left off, where we're making the point that, one of the things I always say, and I just said this to you when we were tasting, is that the French, the Italian, they've had thousands of years to figure this out. Willamette's had, 50 years? Barely, right? And maybe a little bit extra if you count mm-hmm. the period of time before Prohibition, right? And this idea of you and the people that are kind of around you figuring out maybe what Willamette is and what it should be
Yeah.
is so exciting to me.
For me as well. It's why my project keeps growing with working with different grapes. It's because I am not convinced that we are a great wine region for one grape. I am convinced that we're a great wine region for tens of hundreds of different grapes. Oregon is the only wine region in the United States where we can grow our grapes in the European model. We do not have to irrigate, by and large, our vineyards. So we are almost completely dry farmed, which is the standard in Europe.
Yeah.
It is the exception in the New World.
Yeah.
Lots of irrigation happens, and usually this is due to facts of wanting to grow a grape in a region that maybe that grape isn't suited for.
Yeah.
It's kind of forcing a square hole in a round peg kind of situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I always felt that Pinot couldn't just be the one thing that we could be great at. I have a larger enthusiastic vision of what Oregon is, and the minute you start to try to be one thing, that's a dangerous precedent.
Right.
Because we're creating an ecological monoculture, and that's not always the healthiest economic model. And we haven't had 400 years of experimentation to know what exactly does work.
Right.
And even if you just to pick one grape, there's multiple clones of all those grapes. So the question I don't think is going to be answered even in my lifetime. My pursuit is only to cast a wider net. Right. And not be convinced we're just good at one thing. We are not a one-trick pony. Right. Although lots of people would like us to be that, including lots of owners.
It's a better marketing.
It's a much easier marketing ploy.
Sure.
It's a great short-term strategy, but if wine tells us anything, it's a long-term, lifelong pursuit and generational pursuit.
This is the last thing I'll ask you, and then we'll get out of here. But like, a 25-year-old is just getting into wine. What would you want them to know about Willamette Valley?
Really be fearless, but understand that there is a really exciting underbelly that should jazz you enough to get interested in all the other grapes that we are planting there and all the different wine styles that we're able to achieve there. Really given the special climate and the soil type that we have there, that you can be a strong part of what the future of Oregon wine is.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much. Ledoux Crew, Jeff Vejr, Golden Cluster, Vitis Obscura, probably a bunch of other
6 or 7 one
wines. Yeah, like it's like Wu-Tang. He's got like 99 AKAs. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Thank you.